Hey there, and welcome to the Airlock Module Podcast. I am your host, Yuki Nishimura. Think of this show as a cozy little airlock, a place where we pause, connect, and step between two worlds, Earth and Mars, science and everyday life, life inside the habitat, and discoveries out on EVA. Each episode, I sit down with an analog astronaut or the amazing mission directors, engineers, scientists, support crews who make these simulations possible. Together, we share the real stories of what it's like to live and work in a Mars habitat and the surprising lessons it teaches us about living better here on Earth. My guest is Hanna Harutyunyan, Armenia's first analog astronaut, a robotics engineering student, podcaster, and space researcher who's making waves in the international analog astronaut community. She's currently the astronaut training officer for Asclepios, helping design the next generation of astronaut training programs. She's also served with the Australian Space Forum as part of ground operations, working with the Analog Astronaut Training Center in Poland, and hosts her own show, Mission Analog, where she spotlights the stories behind analog missions from around the world. In our conversation, we talk about how she discovered space during the pandemic, what it was like meeting her heroes at Starmus, including Chris Hatsfield and Dr. Jane Goodall, and how a chance encounter led her to join the Amity 24 Mars simulation with the Australian Space Forum. She also opens up about her research on cognitive performance, her love for robotics, and the lessons she learned leading teams under pressure. From growing up in Armenia to running training programs in Europe, Hanna's story is about curiosity, courage, and finding your own orbit in a field that's still defining its boundaries. So let's cycle the airlock, step inside, and meet Hanna Harutyunyan. Welcome to the show, Hanna.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's get started by hearing a little bit about yourself and your educational background.
And I'm from Armenia. I started my studies as like every kid in the world from like the elementary school. And then I went to some sort of high school, but it was also connected to the university. So it was like more technical. It was called Polytechnical High School. And I graduated that during the COVID. And then I took 2 gap years, which were like the most amazing 2 years of my life, because I was trying to understand what I want to do with my life, because the life was chaotic. Everyone was like really busy to catch everything. And for me, everything was like falling apart in the world and also in my world. So I wanted to understand what I want to do with my life. And after that, I got enrolled in International University of Applied Sciences in Germany. My bachelor is in robotics engineering, and I'm finishing my bachelor's in like a couple of months. So
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm working on my thesis now. It's a long journey, but I hope I will get there, since my studies are hybrid. So I'm not always in the campus traveling at the meantime. I was looking for projects and things to do, and I started to be interested in space because from the very start of my educational journey, I was really curious about any subject which was related to space or had like some information about space, for example, physics. I was really, really interested. And I found this astrobiology course from Womanium, which is like a DC-based organization in USA. And I finished that. Like my deliverable was Mars mission project. And I really liked the process. I really liked the end product, I would say, because it was not only the mission, but also the rover design. And I got really interested. I started to look for other opportunities. And then in Armenia, there was this conference called Starmus. It's like an international huge conference which brings together scientists, astronauts, like Nobel laureates, and everyone, the goats from the industry. So since one of the organizers is Garik Israelian, he's Armenian. They decided that year, it was, if I'm not mistaken, 2022, but they decided to do in Armenia, and it was once in a lifetime opportunity. I got enrolled, I became a backstage coordinator, and I met everyone that I wanted to meet. It was like a multiverse. I was like nothing, and I was in the middle of like very professional, highly skilled people, and I felt like I am in the right place because I was waking up every day at 6 a.m. and I was there till like 1 a.m. and I was not getting tired for weeks. And that was the moment that I understood that I am in the right place. And actually, I met the first Armenian astronaut, Jim Bagyan, and we had a really nice dinner at Mr. Gyros, which is like a fast food chain in Armenia. And I told him, I was like, I am really interested in space. I'm doing this as my bachelor program and I want to get enrolled, but I don't want to do something like traditional, because I'm an Armenian citizen. And in order to do traditional things, you need to put yourself into box and qualified in terms of requirements to have the citizenship, to live somewhere, to hold passport, like etc. This kind of thing. So I was like, I want to be involved, but I don't want to follow all of this because why should we have this kind of rules, right? Everyone has the right to be part of the space. And he actually told me about analog missions. And he was like, there are these missions that they are actually space missions, but here on Earth, you can like check out. And I was like, that's interesting. So actually, he was the person that gave me this idea, and then it was pure luck that Austrian Space Forum chose Armenia as their like next destination for the Mars mission for Amadi 24. I went to an info session which was in Tumo. It's a technology center in Armenia, and I met the director Gernot Kromer, and I asked them how I can be involved, and they told me about this like opportunity to apply. They sent me the application. I applied and I waited for a very, very long time. I waited for months, and then they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we have this training that it's mandatory and you need to be involved. So it was like the training process, teaching you everything from technical point of view about analog missions overall. And then at the end, there is an exam. And if you pass the exam, you can be part of Amadi. And actually, I did everything. And the thing was that there were like several teams. Like, for example, if I'm not mistaken, the team name is Remote Science Support, and Media Team and Ground Operations Support Team. So my goal was to be in Ground Operations Support because, this is the team that is in action. Like, you are going to the simulated Mars and you are helping the astronauts. You're in the field and you are not sitting like behind the screen. You're actually doing something with your hands, with your moving and stuff. And it's really fun for me. And I didn't want to just sit in a corporate world and of course helping the mission. But for me, since I was also working in corporate at that time, I didn't want from one office to go to another office. So that's why I got the opportunity actually for remote science support and I rejected. And everyone was like, are you crazy? I was like, I'm sorry, but I honestly don't want to do that. And they were like, you could just like be enrolled. And then when like a slot would open, go for ground support. And I was like, no, because if you get enrolled, you need to do something, right? You need to do some tasks and stuff. And like leaving that just like in the middle and then jumping for another opportunity is not for me. It was January and the project manager from Armenian side texted me and she was like, we have a slot for Ghost Team and if you want, you can join. I was like, are you kidding me? Of course I want. Of
That's
course
when
I
you
got.
dropped everything, right?
Yeah, that's why I rejected at the first place the remote science team. And actually, I will be like completely honest, when it was like December, it was like Christmas, New Year, etc. And like the Armenian team who already had their roles, they went to Vienna for another training. I started to have these thoughts about, did I do the right thing or am I missing out, like this FOMO? And then since it was Christmas, it just went away because Christmas and New Year are my favorite holidays in the whole world. Then I realized that everything is like for good and I got enrolled and I went to the habitat for the first time. I wore my suit and that was the moment that I realized this is not a dream or like scam or something. And I'm actually, yeah, and I'm actually part of this. And then I met everyone. We made the mission success. We had so much fun. I learned so much from the mission. And that was my first analog mission. After that, my goal was not only to be part of the mission, but also to be an astronaut, to be
Hmm.
tested and to test things. Because for Amadi, we were testing like many things. I was also part of the things. I was like operating rovers, helping with anything that was there that I had the knowledge and skills. But I also wanted to be the astronaut. So I'm really grateful to Analog Astronaut Training Center for selecting me to be on their mission. It was actually the same year in July, and that was my second mission. And that was the time that I became the first Armenian analog astronaut, and I hold this title till now. And yeah,
Do you feel certain responsibility with that title?
I had the idea that I will be the first one, but I didn't realize that it's a responsibility, because sometimes when you call yourself something, like for example, I'm a robotics engineer, you are a robotics engineer, but you don't hold any responsibilities for society, right? If someone
Hmm.
comes and asks you a robotics question, you cannot answer it, it's fine, right? But if you are called first Armenian like astronaut, at the moment that I came back to Armenia, I started to realize the responsibility because Ocean Space Forum's director invited me for a like conference to have a panel discussion with him during WCIT, which is a congress, and it was happening in Armenia. And that was the time that I saw many people and I was introduced as analog astronaut, and people were asking so many questions, wanting to take pictures with me and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, what's this? And yeah, that was the first time that I understood that it's not only that I'm doing the things that I love and I like, but also I have some sort of, I don't like to have this kind of pressure, I want to live my life the way that I want. I don't want to
Hmm.
have this pressure to follow certain protocols and stuff. But that was the first time that I realized I have some sort of responsibilities and some sort of pressure on me right now.
I want to unpack one little thing before we move to your analog missions. In your blog, you mentioned you enrolled in Polytech High School where you studied engineering and you were taught by university
Hmm.
professors.
Yeah.
But in that blog, you say that this was not a good decision.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you meant by that.
The thing is that I think my journey shows that I don't like the traditional paths, like following the protocols and stuff. And that's why I am trying to find the best master's program for me because I want to continue my academic education. That's why I had these 2 gap years to understand, we are working in this hustle culture that not everyone needs to get degree in order to work or earn money. You can just like become a blogger, right? Which is not an easy job. I'm not underestimating them, but like you don't need a degree for that, right? So that's why, like during these 2 gap years, I understood that I want to be part of academia and like continue my journey till PhD, postdoc, etc. So I am now in the process of trying to find the perfect university for me. And that's how I chose my high school because everyone was like going to the traditional high schools just around their like living place, around their house and stuff. And I went really far away. I was like taking a subway in order to go there. And it was
Oh.
in the city center and I was not living even closer. So I chose this because they had this like engineering track and I wanted to explore that.
You were at a conference where you got to meet Dr. Jane Goodall,
Yes.
among others. How was that experience?
That was during Starmus, and
Okay.
because like everyone I know in my life, it's thanks to Starmus. And actually, I'm giving like a huge credit for the organizers or the conference itself because first of all, it changed my life, and second of all, I just love them. They are doing an amazing job. And yeah, actually, during the conference, I met so many people. I met Kip Thorne, Brian May, Jim Bagan, the first astronaut, and
Mhm.
I met so many people from like commercial space as well. And meeting them and talking to them actually was something surreal. And I do remember the small conversations Oh, I met Chris Hadfield, and that was also special because I remember when I was a kid, I was watching his YouTube videos from Canadian Space Agency, how he was like singing and crying and eating and everything. And actually, when I saw him, I saw that. First of all, I went extra mile and I went to his hotel for that meeting. I didn't tell this to anyone, by the way. I was stalking him.
You heard it first right here.
Yes,
Exclusive.
yes. And the thing is that every speaker had their like coordinators, and I just like found out who is the coordinator, and I just texted her. I was like, he's my childhood hero. I really want to meet him. Yeah, can you please do something? And she was like, we are outside and we are going to the hotel right now. And if you will run, I think you will get the chance to meet him. So I ran, but I was 10 minutes late, and I went to the reception and I was like, oh my God, have you seen Chris Hadfield? And they were like, we don't know, maybe he went to his number already. And I was so sad because I ran literally from my place to the hotel because it was a bit far. And yeah, and then I just turned back and I saw
Nice.
yeah, and I was like, oh my God, I just froze. I was like,
And you're
oh my
sweating.
God. Yeah, I was sweating, I was shaking, and I brought like, if I'm not mistaken, Stephen Hawking book for him to sign because I didn't have any of his books. And I had only Stephen Hawking one. And I was like, is it okay if you sign this one? It was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. And then I just started to ask questions, and we just talked like for 5 minutes. It was like the longest 5 minutes of my life.
Nice.
And because I was like into the conversation, and I was like trying to enjoy every second of it. And then I told him that I know Russian, and he started to speak Russian to me. And that was because the book was Russian, and he was like, why do you read in Russian? And I was like, this is my second language. And he was like, oh, really? And he started to talk Russian. And I was like, I never thought this would happen to me ever. So
Amazing.
yeah, and he signed the book and he hugged me. We took a picture, and actually we talked a lot after that because it was like the first day of the conference and I already like accomplished something.
So you mentioned you watched a lot of YouTube videos as you were growing up, but I want to touch on the first character that really inspired getting you into space.
It was Buzz Lightyear. Inspired by Buzz Aldrin, the character who actually I cried so much while watching the Toy Story, even when I was a kid, because I don't know, the moment when he realizes he cannot fly and he's just a toy, he's not an astronaut. That broke me. Yeah, and I was like, "Oh my God, we need to do something. We need to do something right now for him." And I remember I went to my school and I talked to my physics teacher. She was actually really nice, but she told me that I just need to study and not think about these kind of things, which broke me even more. So I was like, yeah, because, I really do not like when kids are asking questions, even if it's like an absurd question and adults are like, that's not possible.
Hmm.
Now, me as an adult, when a kid is asking me a question, if I think it's not possible, instead of saying that, I'm just asking a question back. I'm like, how do you think you can achieve that? Giving them a thought to think even further rather than breaking that motivation. And I decided that if one day I will get a chance to go to space, I will take him with me and he will realize that he is an actual astronaut. And actually, I have the figurine somewhere in
On
my
your
house.
desk.
Yeah, on my desk. Right now, I'm not near my desk, but it's somewhere near the desk. And actually, I removed it because it was becoming dusty, and now it's a little bit hidden. But in order to protect him, but yeah, the thing is that it also broke my heart because someone already took him to space. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I saw a video. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the astronaut, but they already took him to space. So I'm really happy that he already achieved his goal. But I'm a little bit sad that I was not the one to give him that opportunity. So maybe one day I will take him back to space.
Yes. Yes. Let's go back to you being the ground operations support for Amity 24. How long was that mission and what was your role?
The mission itself was 3 weeks, but like we stayed around a month. But the preparation itself was like an additional month. So it was like around 2 months we were there. And
Wow. So it
yeah,
wasn't
because
virtual up to that point. You were physically there for 2 months?
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
me personally, since I live in Armenia, I was not staying the
Mhm.
habitat which was for ghosts members because we had like a place where we're staying, some sort of like habitat for ghost members and also for the astronauts. So I stayed there. I had amazing sleepovers with my team members. It was like really nice. But since I'm an Armenian citizen, in order to go to take a shower or something, I was going back home. It was pretty long because the preparation and also we had additional training and also the setup because they brought so many scientific equipments and the rovers itself and many things that needed to be calibrated and also the habitat itself. It was not mostly ready before the mission, so we needed to help with the construction itself or cleaning. As a ghost team member, honestly, when you're a ghost team member, you don't have one specific task. You do everything, even cleaning. For me, especially during analog missions, you don't need to have this pride to not clean and not do anything like that. You need to understand that we are all equals and we need to do that. So I was helping with everything that I could. Even with electricity, when they were setting up the electricity, I was helping them with the sockets and stuff. Yeah, that was the pre-mission setup. During the mission, I had many responsibilities as well, but like I had two main ones, which was helping one of our ghost members with the Wi-Fi setup and also operating the rovers because when they were doing the EVA extra vehicle activity with the suits that were going to the simulated Mars, they needed to perform some experiments with the rovers. But since they had the suit and they were like outside like 4 hours, they couldn't really take the rover all the time with them. So they needed someone to take care of the rover to charge and recharge like when it was needed. Do the first calibration, like put the tools and to just make sure that the rover works and if needed to drive it to like from A location to B location. So I was responsible for mostly for that and also any technical things that was happening that I could help with my knowledge or following the manual. Yeah, that was what I was doing during the mission.
Nice. Who was doing mission control? Were you part of that at all?
No, I
Or
was
did it
not.
Okay.
Mission control was operated from Vienna by the Austrian Space Forum people. The
Nice.
thing is that they were not on site, so we were the only one outside of the mission. Like we were not astronauts, but we were interacting with the astronauts face
Mhm.
to face. Like, and that's when we had like amazing videos and photos with them. When they were resting, we were like just making jokes or like talking to them, but of course we needed to be invisible. For example, if there were like some technical issues or something, we needed to stop the simulation for a second to approach them to do something and then go back. So it was the time that we were interacting with them.
All right, let's move over to your first mission.
The first one was by Analog Astronaut Training Center, which was called LOTOS. It was like all female mission. So it was really fun. And the thing is that it was a seven
Where was
day
that?
in
Yeah.
Krakow. It was like near Krakow, a forest, and we were in the forest, in the habitat. If we wanted to break the simulation and to find someone, we needed to walk for 50 minutes in order to get. So we're hidden. And there was actually a reason for that because before people wanted to break the simulation from the outside, they knew that there is a simulation going, and that's
Hmm.
why it's really hidden. So the media or people who can actually harm the science, they won't find us. That was my first mission. We were like 5 people and it was 7 days. It was lunar simulation. So it was the first time me experiencing no sunlight and it was so much
And
fun.
you reset the clock to midnight, and then that's
Yes,
what you lived off of, right?
yes, exactly.
Is that also the mission where the water was rationed
Uh,
and you had to use wipes to shower?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was the
how was that
mission.
experience? How much water did they give you guys across the 5 astronauts? Remember?
Honestly, I don't remember because I was not the one counting this. So we had a person who was like keeping track of everything. And of course, they
Did you
were
run out?
sharing all the information. Actually, no.
No,
No,
okay.
we didn't. No, because first of all, we were girls. As I mentioned, it was all females. In order to keep the hygiene in the highest level, women between each other, they are not really discussed of things, because they think, oh, she is a woman. They have this kind of mindset. But when there is a male inside the crew, and I actually noticed that during the Terra Nova mission, females are like, you need to flush after you immediately because it's disgusting. But we never had this conversation when we were just all female crew because we are naturally not discussed by each other. I don't know. So it was much easier for us to save the water. And we had plenty water. And our the director of Analog Astronaut Training Center, she was like, this is the first time that we have so much water left.
Wow.
And yeah,
Was the habitat sealed?
yes, it was.
Okay. Were you collecting any condensations at all?
Honestly, since I was not the one collecting everything, I have not much idea. So my experience was mostly related to the experiment itself and
Mhm.
my research. So that's why anything that was not really my responsibility, I was not really getting involved to not disturb anyone. And also, since I already had like my schedule, like things to do, each minute was scheduled, so I was not really following that. And then I realized it's wrong. That's why for Terra Nova mission, I took the lead to do everything that was related to habitat maintenance. And I was the person caring about the water and the electricity and everything because that was also limited.
What was your experiment at LOTOS?
So I had two experiments. One was related to AI. I wanted to understand how we can integrate AI in analog missions in order to make it like more successful because there are so many things still that we're doing manually during the mission. The sample collection itself is like a really tiring process, especially if the samples are related to your like measurements when you are trying to analyze your body composition or like your temperature, your urine. You're taking this everything manually and then you are putting manually into the spreadsheet and then someone manually is analyzing every single cell and
Mhm.
understanding if it's like within the range or not. So one of my key objectives was to understand where we can actually implement AI and make the mission itself more efficient. And the second one was the mental math, which I actually continue till this day. It is a study which shows how mental math is affecting on your cognitive performance in extreme environmental situations. For example, when you are in rest compared to when you are doing EVA or you are in a simulation for a couple of weeks or when you are doing a physical workout, especially in habitat, it's not like in gym. There is not much air, and sometimes it's humid, and sometimes so many people are doing the same workout at the same time. So it's like a little bit more stressful than it is in the gym, right? So yeah, things like that.
Nice. Any surprises coming out of the research?
So I realized that the AI thing is a little bit too early to implement for the analog missions because we need to have a foundation. The sensors, for example, that we have that we are analyzing the habitat, we can have any software tool to help you to monitor everything, right? It's not something new. But when it's related to humans and analyzing humans, it's actually not sufficient right now to do that with AI because all the data is right now inserted manually and you need to have equipment which will transfer, for example, the data. So anything that is already automated that we can use the data to train AI in order to get something out of it, we don't really have for analog missions. We don't really
Mhm.
have something sufficient to rely on. And when we get something, for example, a device which will help us to measure like everything, your temperature in one device, you can measure everything and it will keep the information and transfer to AI and it will start analyzing and keeping in track. that can be an option. But now, in order to take your temperature, you are using the thermometer. And then for the pressure, you are using another equipment. And for saturation, another equipment. And they're just like equipments, right? So they are
Hmm.
keeping the information to themselves. So you need to use 10 devices in order to analyze how you're doing and what's changing and so on. So that's why I realized that collecting all of it, it's still manually, and we need to come up with a solution to collect automatically in order to keep this flow and integrate AI more in this field.
Yeah, I think AI is going to be big. It's hard to try to figure out where it can be implemented, especially in an analog environment, because it's still kind of an infant industry.
Yeah, also there was like a proposal to integrate AI as a psychologist for analog astronauts because you are in a isolated habitat with people that you don't really know. Of course, you are getting close during the time, but it's not that you knew them for years and you trust
Hmm.
them that much. One of my friends is actually working on an AI, which is not only like a psychologist, but also if you have technical questions, you can ask them. It's like a chat GPT, but a little bit more focused on analog missions. But I also had concerns on that because when you are in a habitat isolated, you want to talk to someone, right? A human being.
Hmm.
And of course, AI will try to help you, but I realized that nowadays all the AI psychology things, even ChatGPT or the specialized ones, they follow patterns. They are not like trying to help you actually, but sometimes they are trying to please you. So that's why for me, integrating this kind of things as a psychologist is wrong. Because first of all, you want a human contact. And second of all, if it will start pleasing you the whole time, you won't get the help that you need.
And Terra Nova was at LunAres.
Yes.
Tell me how you got involved in that mission. How long was that mission, and what was your role?
So actually, that was also not a linear path. And the thing is that there is this magazine called Life in Armenia, and they published an article about me. And one person found this article and he got curious about the things that I'm doing. And he actually messaged me. He was like, I'm coming to Armenia and I would love to meet you. And I was not in Armenia. I was actually in Salzburg. And I texted him. I was like, so sorry, but I'm not in Armenia. And I don't think that I will be in Armenia at that time. I unfortunately won't be able to meet. Long story short, things got changed and I needed to come back to Armenia for some documents. And we actually met and we had a 7-hour meeting. Yeah. I was talking about me, was talking about his company. And then I told him about that opportunity, the LunAres mission, that I want to get involved and I need someone to sponsor me. And he was like, okay, I will call you later. So then a couple of weeks later, he called me. He was like, I decided with my company to sponsor the mission. It's a Swiss company called Nine Cubes, and they are doing soft skill trainings with simulations for professions that encounter stressful situations. For example, firefighters or pilots or these kind of professions that are in high stress environment, and analog missions as well, like high stress environment. So they were like, since we did with pilots and firefighters and etc., would be interested how it will affect to analog mission. And that's why they wanted to sponsor me so I could go and bring with me the simulation of their company. And also I would be involved in the mission itself. It was actually really fun because they have these two trainings where they not only try to enhance your soft skills, you can be like the best coder programmer in the world, but if you are working in a team and you lack the communication, you lack the teamwork itself, you won't
Mhm.
get anywhere. Who needs like the skills if you cannot really use them? They were teaching us how to use our soft skills and enhance them in order to especially during EVAs, in order to make the best out of it. That was how I got sponsored because the mission Terra Nova was sponsored and organized by Polish Space Agency and European Space Agency. So they paid like some part of the mission, but in order to compensate, we needed to pay the other half.
Hmm.
So yeah, Cube sponsored me and they paid the other half. And we talked with LunAres and we proposed this idea. They already knew me because I had a podcast with Leszek Orzechowski. And also, I applied for LunAres long before, and they already knew that one day I will do LunAres, but when they didn't. So they talked with everyone involved, and everyone was really happy with the simulation itself, and also me participating and representing Armenia. So we decided to do that, and yeah, that's how it started. And I also brought my mental math experiment. So since the mission was simulating the axiom for space mission, which was happening in ISS, we had like the experiments on board, and also we had like 9 people, which was like extraordinary experience because for LunAres they always had like 5, 6 people, and having 9 people on board was the first time. We actually needed to install additional beds, and because we had only 5, 6 beds, and we needed 2 more in order to accompany 4 more people. And that was the mission.
Did it feel crowded in there with 9 people? With all of the research going on and everything else?
Honestly, it was first since they joined us a week later because that was the
Hmm.
idea. That was we needed the 5 of us to live together to become more familiar, and then other people are joining us. You already establish your protocols, you already know each other, and then 4 other people are coming. First, our schedule was sometimes overlapping with ours. For example, the things like waking up or having lunch, dinner, it was an hour either before or after hours. So we were a little bit separated. But sometimes when we wanted to use specific places, especially they were filming a lot for outreach purposes. For me, it was really awesome. I was so excited. I was maybe the only one from our team that was so excited because the commander of the other Terra Nova mission was Martina Di Mosca, and I
Hmm.
love her so
I'm
much.
such a big fan.
Yeah, me
Such a big
too.
fan.
Me too. Oh my god, she is amazing. And the thing was that we also did a podcast, and during my podcast, we actually hinted that we could do a mission together. And we were praying. We were like, "Oh my god, we need to do this together because it's not only fun when we're doing the science experiments and the research itself, but also it's fun when you're doing that with your friends." It's
Yeah.
so much fun. The first second that when she opened the door and she came in, there is a video that I'm just jumping on her and just like hugging her and be like, "Oh hi, how was your pre-flight?" and etc. It was like really funny. Everyone was handshaking and being professional. They were like, I'm not doing that like professional. I will just hug you as a normal person. Because I saw that in ISS, people are hugging each other. They're not handshaking. So I
Yeah.
did the right thing, right?
That's
So
right. That's right. I think even that interaction of another team coming in, a week later, that's a good simulation for what happens on the ISS because like, when the Dragon capsule comes in with a new batch of astronauts, they have that interaction. They have debriefs and all of that before the older team goes home. Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing you guys did.
yeah, thank you so much.
Your mental math, you've been doing them across multiple missions. Are you going to publish your results or what's going to come out of that?
I don't know if you're familiar with the Analog Astronaut journal that was published
Mhm.
recently by Jasper.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wanted to publish for the first submission batch, but then I had so many things going on, I couldn't. Now I want to publish for the second batch, but again, so many things are going on, so I'm trying to get there. But the thing is that I realized something interesting. First, I was doing the mental math for the research purposes only, like to get some observations and stuff out of it. Now, I realized that I can also build a solution for that when
Hmm.
I see that astronauts, first of all, I can share some findings that astronauts, when they are in a high pressure situation, most of them perform better rather than when they are just sitting and doing nothing, even
Oh.
if they are outside of the simulation. or everyone was shocked because they were like, I cannot believe that wearing this whole suit, being on a simulated moon, because I usually did like lunar simulations. I did only lunar simulations. So yeah. They were like, I cannot believe that I'm performing better because, like when you are doing the mental math, when you're just sitting, you can just use your phone, your fingers. But when you are with the suit, you are using a stylus, and it's like
Mhm.
much harder to do that. And actually, they were like performing better. And it was a really interesting thing. And that thought actually gave me another thought that how can we increase their cognitive performance level when they are sitting and doing nothing. So they will have this equal balance and not have the
Right.
cognitive fatigue during the EVA. If the EVA seems easier for them to do like the mental math, but they also perform scientific experiments outside of the EVA, right? So we need to make sure that they have like the same balance like results, and in order to help that, I am now creating a solution which will take the results from which will have the tests for like both scenarios, and then based on that data create a comprehensive training for the like mission length. For example, if it's 2-week mission, they have like some sort of short 10-minute training that they are doing every day in order to keep the balance. And because brain is a muscle, right? So you need to
Mhm.
train it constantly in order to maintain the same level of results and like performance. That's what I'm working on right now. That's why I'm procrastinating my publishing, because I think I can
Researching.
get researching. Yeah, I really love when I'm procrastinating something to label it differently. And so the thing is that I think that I can get more meaningful thing out of the research that I was doing this 2 years. So it will be more interesting to publish. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm not applying for conferences and stuff, because I want to talk about something which would be really interesting rather than be like, I did this, and I found this. I also want to show what I gained from it and what I developed further. So
Mhm.
yeah. But speaking about Asclepios, I am, as you mentioned, the astronaut training officer for them. And although I brought my experiment, it's not part of the training. It's part of the mission itself. But the
Mm.
training itself, it includes like 6 main blocks of the training, which we're doing. The first one is psychological, which is like we are having psychological sessions with psychologists, and they are having these sessions for a year almost every week in order to assess any mental challenges that they have, and they are filling out questionnaires. And then we have the physical training. Last year we had Astro Strength sponsoring the mission, like that particular part, and they had this comprehensive training for the astronauts that they developed, and astronauts needed to follow for a year, doing that like every week and developing their skills for survival training, which is the next phase, and
Mm.
also for the mission itself, because like the suits are heavy and also they are hiking during the EVA, and they are with the suits for like 5-6 hours, so they need to have the physical preparation. So the next phase is the survival training, when we send them to Alps, and we leave them there for like a night. So they need to survive, and first of all they need to hike up to the Alps and then to stay there with minimal support, and also do like cold baths and stuff. So it's also it's also like really crucial part of the training. Then we have the zero G training, which we did this year with the astronauts. I also was part of it.
How did
The
you guys do
Italian
that?
in Italy. In Bergamo, there is this amazing company called QBT. It's an aviation company, and they are really, really nice. And they were part of Asclepios as well, sponsoring us. We went to Bergamo in order to experience that. We experienced 6 parabolic flights, and overall we were like in microgravity for 48 seconds. We are so close to Katy
I'm
Perry.
so jealous. Have you applied for that with the Blue Origin?
No.
No.
Honestly, actually, this is the first time that I say this out loud. I mean, I told this to my friends. If I ever get the opportunity to fly with Blue Origin, I would reject that. And it's not,
Really?
yes. And it's not because I underestimate what they are doing or I have like thoughts about the astronauts who are flying, the commercial astronauts. I respect everyone who flew with Blue Origin and I'm really happy for them, like genuinely happy. I am in space industry because I love it, and I think I can have a meaningful impact here and push the space industry, space exploration forward. And that's why spaceflight for me is not like a dream thing that I will take every opportunity and go and do it just for doing it. If I fly, I want to fly as part of a mission which will have a scientific goal, for example, or
Hmm.
engineering
Hmm.
goal, like how people are flying now, like for example going to ISS. And that's why Blue Origin is like mostly commercialized and they are not really doing a research, or maybe if they are doing a research is for 11 minutes in microgravity, you can just use like the zero G company to
Hmm.
go to
Hmm.
experience microgravity and not really going to Kármán line, hitting the Kármán line. So that's why for me it's a no.
I agree. Blue Origin is such an interesting company because one, like I don't know what their goal is within the industry. I know they can land their own spaceship, but basically just go straight up and come back down. I don't think they've orbited yet. So they have such a different direction than SpaceX.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
because SpaceX is also commercialized, and the thing is that even though, like for example, the Axiom 4 mission, the Terra Nova
mhm. Terra
space
Nova.
mission, yeah, it was also commercialized, right? It was not governmental mission or something. But the thing was that they went to ISS and they stayed there even for 10 days. Of course, like maybe to examine astronaut itself, it's a short time, right? But for many experiments, it's actually like really great time. It's like 10 days. You can do so many research, and actually with Slavoj only, we had 50 plus experiments on board with ISS. So it's
That's
actually
amazing.
amazing. So
Yeah.
it was not only it also had like this psychological part of it. It was not only like a technical mission, but they also sent some technical parts to ISS and they did like some biological experiments. They were packed actually. And that's something that for me makes sense. Even it was
Mhm.
for 10 days, which is like really short because like mostly people stay there for months or like for 6 months, and then they analyze their like body changes because your body is changing like so much because of the microgravity and because of
I
these
I mean,
amazing conditions
I
that you're.
love the research that Mark Kelly and Scott Kelly did, the twins, where one
Yeah.
went up and one stayed and compared their differences.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of experiments, I saw a video of you on the vertical treadmill. I thought that was the coolest thing. That's something that was at a conference
No,
that they had.
it was private. That was
Okay.
something that we did with Austrian Space Forum. Actually, it was during the scientific workshop that we had in Salzburg. I met the whole Austrian Space Forum fam, and the person who's responsible for the vertical treadmill, he was like, I would love to test the vertical treadmill with you, and if you are interested, that would be really nice. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And actually, that was like really random because I didn't have any plans to go to Innsbruck and I needed to go to France. So that's why I needed to go for the integration week for Asclepios, but then my plans got changed and then luckily my flight got cancelled. Thanks to
Hmm.
Ryanair. Yeah, my flight got cancelled. So I was like, what should I do with my free time here in Germany? It was like December, so I didn't have any exams or stuff to stay for my university. So maybe I will go back because Innsbruck, it was really close to Munich. So maybe I will go to Innsbruck. So I texted him. I was like, I'm coming to Innsbruck. So we can do the vertical treadmill thing. And then he was like, oh, that sounds really nice. And we did the vertical treadmill
Was that
to
was
give.
that Yeah, lunar gravity or Martian gravity or
You can
both?
do any gravity with that. Like you can change the gravities, even 2G, 3G. I mean, since it's like vertical, you are hanged with strings. And
Right.
the meaning is that for each G, you are like running because it's a treadmill and it's on. And they are like pushing you towards treadmill or like releasing you if it's like a
Mhm.
lunar gravity. Of course, it's not that much. But for example, Jupiter gravity, they need to keep you like it's 2G, right? So they need to push you forward the treadmill, which is much harder to actually walk. And it was actually really nice. And we played a game from lunar gravity. He was like changing it towards like the Jupiter gravity because it was
Oof.
like increasing, right? And I needed to guess where is the exact point when the gravity is 1G. And I did. I don't know. Yeah, because like for me, when I was walking, I could feel like when it felt natural. You know, when you're walking, it's like 9.8, right? So you can actually feel how flawless was like walking. It was not that you were floating, but it was not that you were actually pushed towards the treadmill.
Right.
So it was actually a really nice experience. And if we compare this vertical treadmill to zero G flight, when you're doing a parabolic flight, you are first getting pushed to the seats with
Mhm.
1.8 G, and then you are
'Cause you're going
experiencing the
up and then
microgravity. Then you are experiencing 1.8 G again, and then you are experiencing 1G. So it was this flow. So when we compare these two things to each other, actually zero G was much more for when you go to ISS, you need to live there, right? I think zero G is better. But if you are planning to go to moon and do an EVA, the vertical treadmill is actually a wonderful tool in order to, especially if you do that with the whole suit and stuff, to experience what you will have like when you do an EVA on a moon. And I think that's really wonderful. Also, one thing about the vertical treadmill was that since there is a support on your back, that you need to keep your back straight in order to be able to walk normally, right? So when you're like this, when you're curled up, you are pushing actually the weight of yourself towards your back rather than towards your legs, because that's
mm,
when was it was like really hard at first to do it, not because it was like heavy, but it was hard to keep the balance because you were using the whole body, like even your head, your shoulders, your back, your abs, and of course your legs. So that was the hardest part maybe of doing the vertical treadmill.
you've experienced a lot. Are you involved in any of the world's biggest analog at all?
Okay, so this is actually the first time that I'm talking about this. Okay, so about the world's biggest analog, since I did two missions this year already, one was the Terra Nova and the second one was the Asclepios. Of course, I didn't say that I was not part of Asclepios as an astronaut, but I was part of as an EVA officer. So whenever they were going to the simulated moon, I was the one actually organizing everything, keeping the structure, and also keeping in touch with the astronauts via the Capcom and like analyzing everything. So I was the one responsible. And since the EVAs were at night, we were in a Swiss military bunker called like Sasso San Gotardo. Our shift was starting at 8 p.m. till 4 a.m. Doing two missions in a year was already enough for me, and I don't want to just burn out. And also, since I'm graduating my university, I'm in this transition of applying for masters, because although it sounds easy, right? It's like a huge process. You
Yeah.
need to collect all your stuff, you need to actually be prepared for additional exams. So it's a huge process. So I'm in the middle of that. Joining WBA, helping with the pre-mission process when you're helping to create some things, and the organizational part was starting the time that I was doing my analog mission. So I was in a simulation without internet connection, without any contact to human
Mhm.
world. So I couldn't actually help them. And to be an analog astronaut, it was after Asclepios. I lived in Airolo for a month in a Swiss military bunker. Like, by the way, since I was part of MCC, I was not part of astronauts. Astronauts were like 9 people, and MCC was like 30 plus. So
Ugh.
30 people were living in a Swiss military bunker together for a month. So imagine and I am an introvert person myself. So I was
Are
living with
you?
30, yes, I am. You cannot tell really, but if you just observe me in my daily life, you will say she's just an introvert nerd. Yeah. And then the thing is that the mission itself was already something. Living with people was already something. And also, I was working at that time with the company, and it was a corporate company. Of course, I was working remotely, but I needed to dedicate 8 hours a day during the week, like 40 hours a week.
Mhm.
So I was also working. So I was waking up at 10 a.m. I was doing my work, and my work was like finishing at like 10 p.m., but I was not taking rest, like 1 hour lunch break. And I was working simultaneously while preparing for the EVA. Then I was going back to the bunker at 5 a.m. because 4 a.m. the mission was ending. Then we were driving from the Sasso down to our bunker. And then when I was already trying to sleep, I was waking up already. And then I was repeating that almost every day, except Saturday and Sunday, because Saturday and Sunday I didn't have work.
Mm.
So the thing is that I was like really close to burnout, and I think I'm still like recovering from that, because like living like that for a month. And also like funny thing, I quit my job because I couldn't handle anymore. I was like really stressed, and I just realized I cannot handle, because I didn't have vacation days, and it was actually perfect for me to quit at that moment. So I did that. And that's why joining world's biggest analog, I really wanted that. But I talked to one of my friends, and I was like, I want that, but I don't want to die.
Yeah.
Because I knew if I will
Yeah.
join the organizing process, because it's much harder than being in a simulation, right? Yeah, the thing is that I was like, do you think it's a good idea to just quit and not do that? Because everyone was expecting me to do that, and people were actually surprised that they didn't see me representing Armenia. They were like, you represent Armenia for other conferences and stuff, which are analog related, and for this mission that's like for your country, non-Armenian people are representing Armenian. And I was like, yeah. But
I
yeah,
mean,
the
you got
thing
to
was
take care
that,
of your health, though. Because I
yeah.
mean, I did 2 missions this year, and so I did not get involved in that world's biggest analog either, because
Oh
it's
my
just
god,
too
so you
much.
get me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did the Arizona mission, and then I also
Mhm.
did at Ilma, which is in North Dakota. Both of them this year, and so
How long were
yeah,
your missions?
they were 2 weeks each. Well, one was 10 days, and then the other one was 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So I mean, it wasn't a month, but
Yeah. But
still.
I mean, it's like living in a simulation, especially, was that like a lunar mission or Martian mission?
Martian mission, both of them.
Okay, so but it doesn't matter. Of course, when you don't have sunlight, it can affect to your
Yeah.
whole system and etc. But like, even though like living in a simulation, it's already a huge challenge.
I do wanna, give you opportunity to plug in your podcast. So, if you wanna mention your podcast and why you started that.
Thank you so much. And actually, I just realized that like this podcast community is so supportive, because I was doing another podcast before, and the girl was like, "You need to mention your podcast during my podcast," because he was like, "You're doing amazing job, and I would love to highlight that." And thank you so much. Actually, it's like really nice. And my podcast, actually, I started after WCIT. I told you about the conference and stuff, that I was a panelist. And I realized that people don't know about analog missions. I mean, now it's like getting better, because we have like journals already, we have like more conferences, we have like more media coverage. For example, National Geographic wrote about our mission. It's
Yeah?
like, yeah, it was so crazy. I thought that National Geographic is writing only about animals and like wildlife and stuff. Actually, yeah, I was actually really surprised. So, but it was really fun. So I decided that in order to give highlight to those people, because Armenia is a small country, and in order to get famous, it's not that hard. You just someone writes something, especially if it's like a foreigner from Europe, writes something about you on LinkedIn and then boom. But like for other people who are like really skilled and they're doing this amazing missions, they have their contribution to space exploration. They are just like going unknown. And in order to bring this spotlight and not only to like make people famous, because it's not that like my podcast has like millions of listeners, but to just have on internet something that I can refer to when I'm talking about analog missions. Now when I'm going to conference, I'm like, you can check my podcast because I have this episode where we talk about this, and you can
Hmm.
listen to that. Like before, when I was trying to explain something, I didn't even have a reference. I couldn't like tell people like, go and check this out because we didn't have anything. Now it's actually really nice, and I'm really proud of all the podcasts because there are like more involving podcasts about analog missions. And that was my first goal, to bring the spotlight to analog community, to talk about the missions, to talk what opportunities are there. And if someone wants to get involved, they can just like simply listen to the podcast and have this like understanding about the opportunities and what can they do here. It's called Mission Analog because I didn't
Yeah.
think twice like to name it. I
I
just made.
love that name.
Really?
The funny thing is, when I was looking up names for this podcast, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, well, what about Analog Mission or Mission Analog? It already exists. And then that's
Oh
how
my
I.
god. So I took it first. But honestly, I thought about that in a second. I was on a podcast. It was called the Batch podcast, and they were like
Armenian.
interviewing. Yeah, it was Armenian. They were
Yeah.
interviewing me. And then I was like, I want to have my podcast because I had the idea from the conference, but when you have the idea, I have like thousands of ideas all the time. But like the point when you start executing that already is like a point when something happens. So I was actually in the middle of podcast. I was like, I actually like this vibe, and maybe I will start doing that actually. And I like 2 weeks after I published my first episode, and he texted me. He was like, you are so fast, because I started to create the website. By the way, everything, the logo, everything I made by myself because I don't have a team. People sometimes are asking when they want to be a speaker or they want to learn more, they are like, how many people are involved? I'm just me.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunities to spotlight my podcast as well.
Yeah. Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to add?
Honestly, we covered pretty much everything from the point that I was born till now. Yeah. The only thing that I would love to mention was related to world's biggest analog. I think I didn't give enough credit for it because it's like the first time that all the habitats in the world are doing a simulation together.
Yeah.
It's a
That is
huge
a
milestone.
huge yes.
Yeah, and it's a huge thing. And actually I just wanted to like to show how grateful I am for this opportunity, because maybe I'm not part of it right now, but actually it's impacting my future journey as well, because people will take more seriously analog missions, because we are in the middle of making analog missions important part of space exploration. Because before they were like, oh, you're just like doing a theater or something, especially when they know that you need to pay for analog missions. They are like, you are paying for analog missions to go, no, 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 no. And actually, these kind of things, the world's biggest analog will help to advance this and make it even more professional. And I'm really grateful for that.
All right. This is the part where I say thank you so much for being on the show. Where can our listeners follow you or find more information about you?
So I created this nickname like years ago. It's Hanna Sav Me. You can just like Google it and it will bring everything, anything that I own in the world. So yeah, I have LinkedIn. I don't use social media, meaning like Instagram, Facebook, and stuff. But I have LinkedIn and I'm checking constantly. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
You don't use social media? That's
I am
amazing.
such a boomer right now, although I'm Gen Z. Yeah, the thing is that I don't find any value on using social media for me specifically. And I'm checking or downloading that only if there is a, like, for example, if I'm invited for a conference, they posted me and I need to repost that. And then I'm scrolling for 30 minutes. I'm realizing that I did the right thing, that I deleted the social media, and I'm deleting again.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you so much for inviting. It was really nice.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to follow the Airlock Module podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a positive review or rating. It really helps the algorithm boost the show so that more people can discover these stories and join our growing Analog Astronaut community. You can also connect with me on social media, on Instagram, Threads, and on X. If you would like to go one step further in supporting the show, I've set up a Patreon where donations are just $3 a month. Your support helps cover the monthly costs of website hosting, editing software, podcast hosting, and other things that help improve the quality of what you hear. Every contribution goes right back into the podcast. I will also thank every contributor at the end of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being part of this journey. Until next time. Do you want to go by Anna or Hannah?
Okay, so funny story. My name is Hanna by my birth certificate, but on my passport they wrote Anna because Hanna is not a common name in Armenia and they misspelled it.